The heavy rain fell relentlessly over the busy Lagos streets, drenching commuters and street vendors alike. People rushed past puddles, shielding themselves with umbrellas or plastic bags. On this chaotic evening, Maxwell sat in his black SUV at a red light, glancing at his wristwatch impatiently. A successful businessman in his late 40s, Maxwell had long buried his past beneath layers of affluence and power. He had just left a meeting and was eager to get home, away from the flood and the frenzy. As he tapped his fingers against the steering wheel, he caught a glimpse of a little girl, no older than 10, huddled under a shed, soaked and shivering, her school uniform clinging to her small frame. Something tugged at Maxwell's heart. Perhaps it was her frailty. Or maybe it was her eyes, big, round, and too familiar. Against his usual instincts, he parked the car and stepped out into the rain. Approaching her, he asked, "Hey, are you lost?" The girl looked up, lips quivering. "I missed my bus. Mama said to wait at the junction, but she's not come. I'm cold." Maxwell hesitated. He wasn't in the business of rescuing stray children, but something about this child made him pause. "Come. Let me take you somewhere dry." "We'll call your mother," he offered. The girl nodded silently. He wrapped his suit jacket around her tiny shoulders and guided her to his car. As they drove through the traffic, he asked her name. "Ife," she replied softly. He smiled faintly at the name. It stirred a forgotten memory, but he dismissed it. After all, names like Ife were common. What he didn't know was that this little girl was more than a lost stranger, she was his blood. A child from a past he had once chosen to forget. Maxwell parked outside a small roadside cafe and ordered hot cocoa for the girl. She sat quietly, clutching the cup in both hands as steam curled toward her face. He found himself watching her too closely. Every blink, every gesture seemed oddly familiar. "What's your mother's name?" he asked, trying not to sound too interested. "Her name is Mama Adis," Ife replied. The name Adis hit him like a bolt. Maxwell's grip on his own cup tightened. There was only one Adis he'd ever known. The one he left at a hospital 10 years ago with nothing but broken promises and fear. Trying to mask the panic in his voice, Maxwell asked, "Where do you live?" "We stay in Ajigona. Mama sells fruits by the bridge," she replied. That was the exact place Adis had said she might return to when they last spoke. Maxwell's heart raced. Was it possible? Could this be the same Adis? And if so, could this girl really be his daughter? He didn't dare ask. The thought terrified him. He had a reputation to protect. A perfect life built on a carefully edited past. He forced a smile. "We'll get you home safely." Driving through the narrow roads of Ajigona, Maxwell tried to steady his thoughts. If this truly was Adis' child, then everything he'd worked so hard to forget was now returning full force. He remembered Adis, vibrant, hopeful, innocent. She was the village girl he had seduced during his NYSC posting. When she told him she was pregnant, he had panicked, paid her off, and vanished. Now, the consequences of that decision might be sitting right beside him, sipping cocoa. They arrived at a tiny shop tucked beside a bridge. Fruits and plantains were arranged on wooden crates. A woman stepped out, frantic and wet. "Ife. My God. Where have you been?" she screamed. Maxwell recognized her instantly, though her face had aged with time and hardship. It was Adis. Their eyes met, and in that single moment, a floodgate of guilt, shock, and forgotten emotion opened. She stiffened, instantly recognizing him. "Maxwell," she whispered. Ife looked between them, confused. "You two know each other?" she asked. Silence hung in the air like thunder before a storm. No one had answers, only secrets. Adis pulled Ife close, wrapping her in a cloth as she glared at Maxwell with a bitterness he hadn't expected. "Why are you here?" she asked coldly. Maxwell stammered, I saw her in the rain. She was lost. I only wanted to help." Adis laughed bitterly. "Help? Like how you helped me 10 years ago. You mean, run away and leave me in labor while you chased your big city dreams?" Her voice trembled with restrained fury. Maxwell lowered his gaze. I didn't know. I wasn't ready. Adi stepped back. You're still not ready. This is my child. You don't get to show up now because fate threw her in your path. Ife looked up, startled. What's going on? Mama, who is he? Adi's face softened as she knelt to face her daughter. He's nobody, Ife. Just someone from a time I forgot. Maxwell winced. The words stung, but he knew he deserved them. Let me do something. Anything, he offered. Adis didn't reply. She turned away, carrying Ife inside. Maxwell stood in the rain, haunted by a past that refused to stay buried. The following week, Maxwell couldn't stop thinking about Ife. Her eyes, her voice, the way she unknowingly mirrored his gestures, it was undeniable. He had to be sure. He began sending anonymous groceries and school supplies to Adi's store through a bike courier. He hoped she would accept the help without knowing its source. And she did. Every time a package arrived, she looked around suspiciously, but never refused it. Ife, excited by the new books and snacks, started to ask questions. Mama, who is sending this? Could it be that man from the other day? Adis brushed the idea aside. We don't take favors from ghosts, Ife. Maybe God is blessing us. But deep down, she suspected it was Maxwell. And although her pride burned, she allowed the support, for her daughter's sake. Maxwell, meanwhile, found some twisted peace in helping from afar. He wasn't ready to be exposed, but this anonymous kindness, was something he could offer while he sorted out the chaos in his heart. One sleepless night, Maxwell made a decision. He needed confirmation. He had to know if Ife was his child. A discreet test would put his guilt and his hope to rest. He contacted a private lab and asked for a home DNA test kit. The next challenge: getting a sample without raising suspicion. He returned to Adi's fruit stall under the pretense of buying oranges. Ife was there, eating roasted corn. He greeted them awkwardly. Adis remained cool, but didn't chase him off. He bent down to greet Ife and handed her a bottle of juice. As she drank, he gently kept the bottle cap, later wrapping it in plastic and sending it for testing. 2 days later, the result arrived, 99.9% match. Ife was his daughter. Maxwell sat in silence, reading the report over and over again. The truth felt both like a gift and a sentence. What now? Could he be a father after 10 years of absence? Would she ever accept him? Would Adis ever forgive him? Armed with the truth, Maxwell approached Adis again. This time, he didn't hide. She's mine, he said plainly. Adis' eyes narrowed. You did a test? He nodded. I had to know. And now that I do, I want to be part of her life. Adis folded her arms. You can't just walk in and become a father. That role was vacant for a decade. Maxwell didn't flinch. Let me earn it. She looked at him, exhausted. Fine. But you do it on her terms, not yours. He started small, helping Ife with schoolwork, picking her up when it rained, showing up to school plays. Ife was cautious at first, but she liked him. Uncle Max, she began to call him. He never corrected her. Not yet. Not until she was ready. Adis watched silently, torn between suspicion and unexpected warmth. For the first time, she saw a glimpse of the man Maxwell might have become if he hadn't run away. One Sunday evening, as they walked home from church, Ife turned to her mother. Mama, why doesn't Uncle Max have a family? Adis sighed. Some people make mistakes and live with them. Ife nodded slowly. He's kind. Maybe God sent him back to us. The question lingered in Adis' mind. Had fate orchestrated this return? Could a man who once abandoned her now become her daughter's anchor? Later that night, Maxwell called. I want to start a trust fund for her education, he said. Adis didn't answer right away. Maxwell, she began softly, are you doing this out of guilt, or do you really care? He paused. Both. I carry the guilt forever. But I also want to be her father, truly. There was silence. Then she whispered, don't break her heart. She's never known disappointment. Maxwell felt the weight of that statement settle in his chest. He made a silent vow, not again. Ife's birthday approached, and Maxwell insisted on planning a surprise. Addis was hesitant but agreed, with conditions. No drama. No lies. Keep it simple. Maxwell rented a small event space and invited a few of Ife's friends and classmates. Balloons, jollof rice, party packs, it was a celebration like she had never had before. When she walked in, her eyes lit up with joy. Is this for me? She squealed. Of course, Maxwell said, kneeling to her level. You deserve the world. During the party, Ife asked him a strange question. Uncle Max, why do I feel like I've known you forever? Maxwell smiled tightly. Maybe because our hearts remember, even when our minds don't. Addis, overhearing, stood frozen. The truth was creeping closer, and the more Ife grew attached, the more fragile the secret became. That night, she sat awake, wondering, was it time to tell her daughter the truth? Addis couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling of their one-room apartment, Ife snoring softly beside her. The little girl deserved the truth. But how would she process it? What if she hated them both for hiding it? The next morning, she decided to confront Maxwell. They met at a quiet cafe. She's getting attached, she said. She deserves to know who you are. Maxwell nodded. I'll tell her. When you say it's time. Addis looked at him long and hard. You tell her, but not alone. We do it together. Maxwell agreed. They picked the following Sunday. Neither knew how Ife would react. But one thing was certain, the truth could no longer remain a shadow. It was a calm Sunday afternoon. The three of them sat on a wooden bench under the mango tree beside Addis' store. Birds chirped overhead, and the smell of ripe fruit hung in the air. Ife looked between them, sensing tension. What's going on? She asked innocently. Addis took her hand, her voice trembling. Baby, there's something important we need to tell you. Maxwell cleared his throat. Ife. I'm not just your friend. I'm your father. The words dropped like a hammer. Ife blinked, confused. What do you mean? Mama said my daddy was gone. Addis' eyes welled up. I thought he was gone too. He left before you were born. But now he's here, and he wants to be part of your life. Ife stared at Maxwell, silent. Then, in a small voice, she asked, why did you leave us? Maxwell's heart broke. I was scared. I was wrong. And I've regretted it every day. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She didn't respond. She just stood up and ran into the house. For days, Ife avoided Maxwell. She didn't smile when he came by. She wouldn't talk. Addis tried to console him. She's processing it. Give her time. Maxwell nodded, but the silence felt like punishment. He spent sleepless nights replaying the moment he left Addis at the hospital, his hands shaking as he drove away. Now he was being forced to feel every ounce of pain he once ignored. At school, Ife stared out of windows, her homework forgotten. Her teachers noticed the change. One afternoon, her friend Chidima said, I wish I had a dad like yours. At least he came back. That sentence stuck with her. Yes, he came back. Most people's fathers never did. That night, she looked at the photos Maxwell had printed for her at the birthday party, the drawing he'd framed. Slowly, something in her heart began to soften. One Friday afternoon, Ife showed up at Maxwell's office unannounced, holding her math textbook. Can you help me with long division? She asked, eyes shy. Maxwell smiled so hard his cheeks hurt. Of course. They spent 2 hours together. She laughed when he made a mistake. He told her silly stories from his childhood. For the first time, she called him Daddy. Addis came to pick her up and saw them sitting close, giggling. She came by herself, Maxwell said quickly. Addis smiled faintly. I know. I watched her from across the street. For the first time in years, the three of them shared a quiet moment that almost felt like family. But not everyone was happy with this new bond. Maxwell's older sister, Chioma, visited him and saw a photo of Ife on his desk. Who is this child? She asked. When he told her the truth, she was livid. After all these years. You have a daughter with a fruit seller and didn't tell anyone. What about your reputation? What about our family name? Maxwell stood firm. She's my blood. That matters more than pride. Meanwhile, in the market, tongues started wagging. Addis and one big man, oh. He comes every day like clockwork, some whispered. Addis ignored them, but it stung. She didn't want pity or scandal. She just wanted peace. Still, she stayed the course, for Ife's sake. Maxwell began taking active steps to prove he was serious. He paid Ife's full school fees for the next 5 years and set up a savings account in her name. He took her shopping for books, clothes, and toys. But more than money, he gave her time, school pickups, weekend visits, bedtime calls. He even offered Addis help with her business. Let me get you a better shop, he suggested. She refused. You're not buying me. I want Ife to see me stand, not lean. Maxwell respected her strength, but insisted on installing shade and security at her store. At least let me make sure you're safe, he said. And she allowed that much. One night, Ife fell violently ill. She was burning with fever, convulsing. Addis panicked. The small clinic nearby had no power. In desperation, she called Maxwell. Please come. I need help. Without hesitation, he raced across town and carried Ife into his car. They sped to a private hospital. Doctors attended to her immediately. Maxwell paced the hallway like a madman. Addis sat in a corner, holding her chest. Hours passed before the doctor returned. She'll be fine. It was a severe case of malaria. Maxwell broke down in tears. That night, the two sat quietly by her bedside. For the first time, Addis placed her hand on his. Thank you, she whispered. As Ife recovered, Addis found herself reevaluating everything. Maxwell had changed. The man who once ran from responsibility had become a man who faced it, head-on. One morning, he arrived with flowers, not roses, but yellow hibiscus, her favorite from when they were young. For old times, he said shyly. They sat on the porch and talked about the past, how scared he was back then, how much he hated himself afterward. Addis listened. When he asked, "Can you ever forgive me?" she looked at him long and hard. "I already have," she said softly. And for the first time in 10 years, she meant it. Maxwell began to dream. What if they could be more than co-parents? What if they could be a family? He shared this with Addis one evening. I want to do things right. I want to marry you, raise Ife together. Addis was stunned. Marriage. After all this. He nodded. We're not who we were. We're better now. I love you. Addis didn't answer right away. But days later, Ife asked, Mama, why don't we all live together? Like real families do. That question unlocked something in Addis' heart. Maybe, just maybe, they deserved a fresh beginning. 6 months later, in a modest garden surrounded by friends, Maxwell and Addis exchanged vows. Ife wore a white dress and walked her mother down the aisle. The guests clapped and ululated. There were tears of joy, of healing, of restoration. Chioma eventually came around, moved by the sincerity of their union. I was wrong, she admitted. She's good for you. And Ife, she's a treasure. That night, Maxwell danced with his daughter under the moonlight, whispering, Thank you for finding me again. Years passed. Ife grew into a bright young woman, top of her class. Maxwell never missed a single award ceremony. Adis expanded her food business into a proper grocery shop with his support. Their home was small but filled with laughter, prayer, and love. One day, Ife stood at her school's valedictory service, giving a speech. Many people think family is only about blood. But to me, it's about second chances. My father wasn't there when I was born, but God brought him back in time to help me grow. In the crowd, Maxwell wept openly, his arm around Adis. Life had come full circle, not with perfection, but with grace.